What's up, guys? Mason the Rock Henderson here, and I decided I'm going to go ahead and do this because why not? This is going to be the first of hopefully more than 3 reviews for the U.S.'s run in Copa America. Uh, this was the game yesterday against Colombia. Just real quick before I get started, just really cool as far as just people that I happen to kind of know. Um, I'm really not related to anybody famous. I don't really know anybody famous, but there is a slight connection. When my dad he played professional indoor soccer when I was very young. I hardly remember those days. I remember glimpses of it, but he actually played with Mark Pulisic, who is Christian Pulisic's father. So the fact that my dad and his dad know each other, it's one of those things where I'm like, that's kind of cool. Um, and obviously it also is something where my dad's like, yeah, his son's playing for the men's national team. What are you doing with your life? I'm like, yeah, nothing. So it's just something else for him to rag on me about. But it is pretty cool that that's there. They know each other. Um, I haven't gotten to meet Christian or his father, but I probably did meet his father when I was like little bitty, when I was really young. But anyway, so yeah, this is the first game for the U.S. Just a quick backstory on my opinions of the U.S. I'm very frustrated with Jurgen Klinsmann. Um, I really, after what happened in the World Cup, I was already saying, we need to think about something else because he's not in the World Cup. We did not perform very well. We had a couple good games, but overall we could have done better. And part of that is down to Klinsmann's formula. And then whenever we got knocked out by Jamaica in the Gold Cup last summer, people really did start asking questions. And I think depending on our performance will really, if we don't make it out of the group stage, I think Klinsmann might lose his job. But my issue with Klinsmann's formula is he wants us to play like we are a better team than we really are. He wants us to play like we are very skillful. Sit back, let them have possession, wait for them to make a mistake. Don't really put a lot of high pressure, and then whenever we get the ball, keep it slow, try to dictate the tempo, much like you would see Barcelona do. Like they do put some high pressure at times, but whenever they get the ball, it's pass, 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 take a touch, see your options, pass. Keep it slow, dictate the tempo, and then really quickly, boom, 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 quick passes. The problem with that is we're not skilled enough to do that. We don't have players that are that skilled. Now, of course, back in the day, we weren't playing like that. It was more direct, and we had players like Donovan, like McBride, like I forget who the other one was in the midfield. We had players that were just very physical. They were fast, and they had pretty good passing, but it was more direct. And I think that's where we do our best. Whenever we're more direct, whenever we're sending the ball down the field and letting somebody run onto it, whether it's Zardes, whether it's Dempsey. So this whole, I don't know if we would have done much better because Colombia was the better team, but I feel like it would have helped us to create a few more chances if we had put high pressure on them, made them make mistakes, and then quickly just direct passing, send it over the top a couple times. I feel like that would have created some more for us because there are just way too many misplaced passes, way too many times where we're trying to do something clever and we don't have the players to do that. So those are my opinions overall. I will say I was fairly happy with the performance as far as the team. There are a couple performances I'm going to point out in a second, but I mean, it's Colombia. They're a good team. They have a lot of skill. There were a few players like Cuadrado, like who was the other one? Crap. Arias, I think, was one of them. Baca was another one. There were a few up top that you could just see whenever they were playing. They had more skill than pretty much anybody on our team. So the fact that we managed to keep them, the first goal, just poor defending for a second, and then the second goal was unfortunate penalty. The fact that we were able to hold them to not being able to score in live play is pretty good. Um, and on top of that, we did have a couple of chances, half chances of our own. So hopefully we learn from this game. Hopefully we take it into the next game. Costa Rica and Paraguay, decent teams. Costa Rica especially has the chance to really, really do well, as we saw last or 2 summers ago in the World Cup. But they're beatable teams, and I think if we can really learn from our mistakes in this game and take it to those next 2 games, we have a good chance of making it out of our group with no problems. So, real quickly, going on to the goals in a bit more detail. First one, off a corner, really disappointing because even the announcers were talking about set pieces are where U.S. needed to get their chances, and the fact that we gave up one from a set piece is kind of disappointing. It was fairly early on to, I think it was the 9th minute, and it's just a simple, you lose track of your man. Jeff Cameron marking a guy, he makes the run around, Cameron doesn't pick him back up in time, and he just has a free volley. It's way too easy, especially for somebody like Cameron who plays in the Premier League. You should be used to that. You should be used to players trying to work around work away from you as their marker. You should be used to that, and you should be willing to, knock somebody over trying to get back to your man, or if you're not able to make it back in time, you throw yourself in front of the shot or something. He just loses track of them and then doesn't get there in time. It just wasn't good enough. And then, of course, the penalty. You had some people saying, "Oh, it wasn't a penalty." Most everybody was saying, though, it was. The one thing I will say, though, if you were watching it on TV like I was, and you heard Alexi Lawless saying, "Oh, you need to put your hands behind your back and defend like this," please don't do that. As a Chelsea fan, I watch Ivanovic do that so much. It's so frustrating. It's not good defending. This is not a natural position. Yeah, it's not going to strike your arm, but so? How are you going to defend like this? If they don't cross it, if they try to take it past you, what are you going to do from here? Your arms are tucked behind your back. That's stupid. The best thing to do is to keep your arms closer to you. Don't put your arms out here if they're going for a cross. Keep them close to you, but still have them out because it gives you better balance. If they're not going to cross it, if they're going to try to take a touch past you, then you're there to step. What Yedlin did was turn his back like this and have his arm up, and that's where it hit his hand. So it was poor, but to hear... Probably from watching these reviews, you're going to find out that I don't like Lawless at all. I think he's egotistical. I think he's an idiot half the time. All the time. But just that, I hear so many people talk about, oh, you need to put your hands behind your back, and it's not proper defending. It's not how you do it. So, while I agree it was a penalty, and I agreed with him saying that Yedlin shouldn't be turning his back like that, I completely disagree with the putting hands behind your back. But it was unfortunate to give away a penalty, especially because it was right at the edge of the box, too. And honestly, half the time refs won't see that or won't call it. So the fact that it was one of those times where he did was pretty unfortunate. So anyway, those are the 2 goals. Pretty straightforward what we need to fix there. As far as individual performances, Guzan, average game. He did okay when he had to make saves, but overall, penalty completely guessed the wrong way. Didn't get down on the volley for the first goal. So he does what he needs to do, but at the minimum. He doesn't really do anything like you think about Tim Howard against Belgium 2 years ago. He did everything he could to keep us in that game. Guzan was just kind of there. He made saves when he had to. Defensively, I didn't necessarily like the back 4. Yedlin at right back is fine. I don't think he's a great defender. I think he makes up for what he lacks in defending with his pace. He has a lot of pace. So I don't mind seeing him back there, but I would like to have a more talented right back because there are just so many times where you see he's diving in and doesn't really know what he's doing. But like I said, he does track back very well, and uses his speed very well. Cameron and Brooks in the middle. I prefer Cameron in the midfield. That's where he plays at Stoke, and he's just not a great center back for me. I, he's not great. He dribbles out of the back a lot because he's used to playing in the midfield, and just had an average game. Like I said, missed the first goal. He's just not that great of a defender. I would rather have other people back there. Bessler. Really disappointed that Matt Miazga is not even called up to the squad, partially because I'm a Chelsea fan, but I prefer other people back there besides Cameron. Brooks had an average game, didn't make any mistakes, but didn't really have a moment where I'm just like, yes, that's why we need him back there. And then, of course, Fabian Johnson on the left. I prefer him in the midfield, just like Cameron. I feel like he's more of a midfielder than he is a defender. And we've got that Edgar Castillo. He plays left back. Why not put him out there? We've got options, but we don't really utilize them very well. Klinsmann doesn't utilize them very well. Up in the midfield, we've got Bradley. I think we had Bedoya on the right and Jermaine Jones on the left. Bradley just needs to go. I hate to say it, it sounds very harsh, but ever since 2014 World Cup, he's just been awful. He was completely... I remember going into that World Cup thinking, okay, Bradley needs to be the anchor for our midfield. He needs to be the one that gets... He was terrible. He did nothing that tournament. Did nothing last year, and was awful last night. Just passes were terrible. Were completely off. Gave away the ball way too many times. Diving into challenges, tripping guys up, just kicking the crap out of other players just because he's not getting the ball out of frustration. He just had a really bad game, and it's not getting any better. He's not getting any better. We have different options. We have to. I'm not Beckerman. Anybody but Beckerman, but why not try somebody else? Why not put Cameron in there? Why not put Jermaine Jones in there? We have other options besides him. I just feel like he's not cutting it for us right now. Jermaine Jones had an average game. Pretty much does what Jermaine Jones does. He's there. He's got some pace. Not necessarily a technically gifted player, but he makes up for that with his physical side of the game and did that fairly well throughout the night. I think what really hindered him, though, was that he's on the same side as Bobby Wood. I'm going to talk about his performance in a second, but you had Zardes and Bedoya on one side, who were both just workhorses and talented. And then on the other side, you've got Bobby Wood, who didn't do much all night, and then Jermaine Jones, who's not very talented, but works hard. So you've got two talented players, and you've got two non-talented players. You need to... The problem with that is, though, I don't mind having two talented players on one side and pushing the workhorses on the other, but the ball kept going to the left side where we don't have a lot of talent, so we kept losing the ball. And then, of course, after we bring on the talented players to the left side, the ball starts going to the right side. It's just one of those facts of nature. Can't explain it. Bedoya, I thought, was the U.S. man of the match. Really created a whole lot. Worked hard to win the ball back. He's probably one of our more creative players, to be honest. Obviously, some of the players that didn't play, maybe they're more creative, but last night he definitely was our most creative player. Passes were really connecting well. Sent through a couple really great through balls that really should have been finished off. But yeah, so really like Bedoya. Hope he continues to perform well. Up in the top, you've got Bobby Wood, Dempsey, Zardes. Bobby Wood is another player that I think needs to be benched after last night's performance. Just he's not very talented. He's also doesn't work hard defensively. I'm just watching him wondering, is he tired? Like, what has he done to make himself tired? Because he's not doing anything. He's not doing anything with the ball. He's not pressuring the defense whenever they've got it. He's just sitting off and walking around, letting them have it. Where's his work? Is he tired or is he just not working? It was just a really pitiful performance from him. And then you got Dempsey, who he's a poacher. He's not a player who's going to create a whole lot on his own. He had a couple good chances, but he's not that player that's going to break through the defense on his own, who's going to do it all on his own. He has the moments where he does because he has to, but a majority of where his game comes from is being a poacher. Whenever another player has a shot and he's just in the right place at the right time to finish it off. And we weren't creating anything, so he wasn't effective. And then you got Zardes, who I think was probably our best forward player last night. He's got skill, he's got speed. I just think he needs more skill around him because you can see moments where he beats two defenders and then he's got nothing. He's all on his own. And so he feels like he has to beat somebody else, and that's when he loses the ball. So we need more talent up there with him. Moving on to the subs, brought on Pulisic and Nagby at the same time. Didn't really know about Nagby that much. I heard his name whenever they were talking about, oh, we need to bring on Pulisic, we need to bring on Nagby. I'm like, who's Nagby? Apparently he's the MLS player to watch right now. They have these players in the MLS, American players, who really start to perform well. And so everybody who's watching the MLS are like, get him. He needs to be on the men's national team. Unfortunately, that does not necessarily mean that they're that good. I think the best example of that is Wondolowski. He tears it up in MLS most of the time, but he's a terrible player. You go into the men's national team, and then he's missing our winning goal against Belgium right in front of the goal, inside the 6-yard box. He's not a great player, but he does well in the MLS. I'm worried that Nagby might be the same way. Whenever he was on the ball, it felt like he was trying to do a whole lot with it and kept losing it. I didn't see much from him whenever he was out there. Christian, he works hard. He has been growing as a player. He's only 17, but he's broken into Borussia Dortmund's now he's on the bench coming in as a sub. You could see though that effort is there, that want and desire to go and win the ball was there, and he's another player kind of like Zardes that I think needs more talent around him because there are times whenever he finds a good pass, but his teammates don't read it very well. So we need to get more talent like Zardes, like Pulisic. We need to get them into the team and start working together because that's what we need. The final sub was Zusi for Bedoya. I guess giving Bedoya a break since he had worked hard all night, but not a huge fan of Zusi. I think he's a decent player. I'd prefer to see other people out there, though, over him. That's just my opinion. But yeah, overall, like I said, Colombia was a better team. They're probably going to win out on the group. I don't see them having any difficulty with Costa Rica or Paraguay, just because both of those teams seem like they're going to sit back on them, and Colombia has the talent to just break through and tear them apart. But I will say that we need to make some changes. Something needs to change for the next two games. We need to either make a change to the starting lineup. I think Bradley and Bobby Wood need to sit the bench next game. I think we need to change up our shape a little bit. Instead of a 4-3-3, go maybe a 4-4-2, a 4-2-3-1. I actually prefer a 4-2-3-1 right now, just because with the team that we've got, we need more midfield. Because we don't have the talent to break through a defensive line that's just sitting back. So I prefer that we sit back a bit more. We take a lot of pressure, and then after pressuring the ball, putting hard pressure, we force them to make a mistake. We win the ball back, and we send it long. We find Zardes. We find, I prefer Dempsey in behind Zardes with. Okay, let me go through this. I'm trying to think. All right, Castillo on the left for left back. Brooks and Bessler, Yedlin. Jeff Cameron with Jermaine Jones in the midfield. Bedoya on the right. Fabian Johnson on the left. Zardes up top with Dempsey in behind. I think that would be my preferred lineup for the next game. Obviously, Klinsman's going to do what Klinsman's going to do because that's just who he is. Probably going to get him fired, but who cares? But, I would like to see a bit more change in the side just because we've seen we've seen this lineup before. We've seen him put these players out there before. We've seen him do all of this stuff before. Let's see some change. Let's see him look at this game and say, okay, there are mistakes that need to be fixed. Let's fix them for the next game and get a set team down so that way they're playing together. There's more chemistry in the side, and we can actually start to do well in a tournament because when's the last time we won something? Like 4 or 5 years ago in a Gold Cup, maybe? I think it's even been longer than that. Anyway, so those are my thoughts on the game and my thoughts on what we need to do to fix some of the stuff. What are your thoughts? Let me know down in the comment section below. What do you want your lineup to be? What do you want Klinsman to change as far as our style of play, our structure, all that stuff? Let me know. Leave a like and subscribe for future U.S. game reviews, and I will see you at the next one. Peace out.